Hi everyone, and welcome to our next video about paragraphing. In our previous video we looked at introductions and how they set up your argument. In this video we're going to look at how individual paragraphs help to drive that argument forward. Usually when you're thinking about a paragraph structure, it's useful to think of it as containing one main idea. It might contain a lot of information, but that information has to serve one main point that you're making. So a paragraph is usually 150 to 200 words. If it gets to be about 250 to 300 words or longer, that's when it's time to start thinking about splitting it up. Keep thinking about what's one main idea that I can show in 150 to 200 words. So a paragraph contains usually three main elements. First of all, a topic sentence, and a topic sentence has to contain two things, both the main idea of the paragraph and how it helps the overall argument of the essay. Then, after your topic sentence, you're going to provide your analysis of the evidence. So that's your explanation of why the sources that you use, why the examples that you use help to illustrate your main point, help to illustrate your argument. And finally, paragraphs usually will end by having a concluding sentence that wraps up what was the main point of the paragraph, how did it help your argument, and, if possible, how does it help to show what's coming next? How does it link on to the next idea? So we're going to have a look at some common problems with topic sentences, because topic sentences are really quite tricky. So take, for instance, this question about how did ideology play a part in the maintenance and legacy of the Neo-Assyrian Empire? Now, if you had a topic sentence like this, official ideology emphasized the king's primacy. Now, that's actually quite descriptive. It doesn't tell me how does it help to answer the question. Did it help to maintain the empire or not? So when you have topic sentences that just contain a fact, for instance, you need to go a step further. You need to show how that fact helps to explain how it answers the question. Let's take another one. During 721 to 705 BCE, the king Sargon promoted peaceful relations with Kume. Now that one is another very descriptive point. It would actually need a reference to back this up. And one really useful thing to do is to look at your topic sentences and ask yourself, do my topic sentences need to contain references? If so, they're probably not doing the job of a topic sentence, which is really to explain in your words, how does that help to answer the question? So this one is just descriptive, it's just information. So let's take another. Official ideology also emphasized the empire's military strength and valor. Okay, again, that one's a bit descriptive. Official ideology emphasizing the military strength and valor, that doesn't tell me how did that maintain the empire or not. So another one, other empires in the region after the Neo-Assyrian Empire also used ideologies that supported their ruling powers and military. Okay, so this is addressing that part of the question about the legacy of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. Now, this one is one where it's not explicit enough. It doesn't tell me directly whether that was actually an impact or a legacy of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. It could be coincidental, really, that the other empires in the region happen to use those similar ideologies. So it's just not making that link clear enough back to the essay question. So that's a really useful thing to have a think about, is it very, very clear why this piece of information or why this main idea in the paragraph helps to answer the question? So we're going to have a look at another example. Now this is the one where the argument is, at the empire's height, official ideology emphasized the king's primacy and military strength. The ideology helped to maintain the empire's stability and reinforce clear national boundaries. However, over time, competing ideologies led to civil war and decentralization of state power, which contributed to the empire's fall. So overall, they're arguing that yes, ideology had a major impact on how the empire was maintained. In the first place, when it was officially produced, when it was stable, it helped to maintain the empire. But when there were multiple competing ideologies, that contributed to weakening of the empire. And then finally, nevertheless, ideologies of the importance of war for Neo-Assyrian royal power continued to influence later empires in the region. That's affecting the legacy. So that's showing, yes, there is legacy. So paragraph topic sentences have to contain two main things. First of all, the topic. of the paragraph. So that's what is the point of the paragraph, or what is the main idea of the paragraph. And you see them here highlighted in blue. In the first paragraph, we're talking about official ideology emphasizing the king's primacy. In the second, it's about competing ideologies and so on. So these are telling us what's the key piece of information that they're going to discuss in the essay. But crucially, they also need to tell us what the argument is, how that information or how that topic helps to answer the question. So in these purple highlighted sections, what they're telling us in these topic sentences is how the ideology emphasized the social stability, which contributed towards maintaining the empire. In that first one. In the second one, a destabilizing effect on the empire. Again, that's answering the question about how did ideology affect the empire. The third one appeared to unify the empire for many years. So making that broad statement back to how did ideology affect the empire, and so on. In the final one, its ideologies continued to be echoed in later empires. Now that's showing the argument that yes, there was a direct legacy from the Neo-Assyrian ideology to other empires in the region. So let's take a real sample paragraph. Now this one is from a student essay, and the question is about how did the Great Depression affect Australia? How did Australia recover economically? So in their topic sentence, what they are telling us first of all is what's the topic of the paragraph. So the eventual recovery from the Depression can be traced to measures engineered by the Premier's plan. So we're looking at the Premier's plan in this paragraph and how that contributed to the recovery, and they've also got their argument is evidence that the economy was within Australian control. So they're saying that this is evidence that in terms of how Australia recovered economically, it was because Australia had some control over its economy. Then in the concluding sentence, what we have is a summary of what they were saying in this paragraph. So again, they're reiterating the topic. So we're looking at the federal government, and they were talking about the Premier's plan in here as well, but they haven't actually mentioned that in the concluding sentence, so they could do a little bit more to say we're looking at the Premier's plan. But they're saying overall the federal government had groped their way back to a solution to the problem, and then they've got their link back to the argument. So the economy was at least partially within the control of Australian government. So they've got their topic sentence and concluding sentence reiterating the same main point. So they're showing how has the evidence contained within the paragraph helped to answer that question. So in this evidence, what I've got highlighted here is that they're using a variety of sources. So they're talking about most historians have generally accepted Shedvin's argument, and they're also looking at evidence from the fall in wage costs from the Premier's plan and so on. So they've got their evidence there to back up their points about how did the Premier's plan, how did the government's actions help to recover the economy. They've also got analysis where the student is showing their own analysis of the evidence. So it's not simply just putting the evidence there and hoping that the reader understands, it's also explaining to the reader how that evidence helps their argument. So what they're saying is things like, without this shield, they scarcely could have competed. So did income and employment that helped to get the economy underway. So what they're pulling out from the evidence is how these examples helped the Australian economy to recover. They've also got cohesive language to connect the ideas. So things like, however, the trigger to economic recovery, although this has been, those linking words or that cohesive language helps to explain how the examples link to one another and how they help to drive the argument forward. So on the whole, paragraphs have to show your overall argument, and they contribute one by one to presenting the main ideas that help to support your argument. Okay, in our next video, we're going to look at conclusions.